Welcome to Tales of Wildemount. Chapter 1. On a cold winter's morning outside Rexentrum, at the Amber Crossroads, 5 adventurers meet in a tavern. Rock Galen, a gnome with knowledge of the arcane. Zakid, a bold and boisterous Aarakocra. Andros, an imposing but seemingly nervous halfling. Theron, a well-armed but green to the world paladin. And Xarxius, a charismatic and confident tiefling. The tavern, hosted under a large tent, is run by Kajisi, a tabaxi. The 5 immediately make their presence known. Zakid sings the praises, to anyone who will listen, of Airdrie Fane, his patron goddess. He even takes flight in a great show of proselytizing, which Kajisi tolerates for a few moments. Andros attempts to make social connections, doubting himself at times, but revealing that he is from Bladeguard, an important outpost of the righteous brand. Theron, seeing much of Wildemount for the first time, reveals he has left his home, the Pallid Grove, and was brought to the area by visions he had received. Rock tinkers with his wondrous mechanical inventions, which attract attention from the others, and speaks of his time in Hubbard. Xarxius, when not flirting with the tavern's barmaid, makes conversations with his fellow patrons. His roguish tendencies are revealed, however, when he fails in an attempt to pickpocket a gnomish compliment. Quickly smoothing things over with a drink and a persuasive apology, he avoids any compliment. Kajisi begins to make conversation with the 5 new rivals. When Xarxius presses her to speak of her burdens, a man synchronistically enters the town. Watchmaster Culvestan, a battle-scarred human of high rank in the crowdsman, claims Kajisi owes 500 gold pieces in unpaid taxes to the crown. The tabaxi forcefully denies this. Xarxius attempts to intercede on Kajisi's behalf, asking for records from Culvestan, to no effect. Andros then politely asks Culvestan to speak civilly, which only angers the Watchmaster more. He threatens to arrest anyone standing in the way of his demands. Andros does not back down, and tensions between him and Culvestan build to uncomfortable levels. Just as it seems like a bloody fight may break out in the tent tavern, Zakid successfully casts a spell, charming the Watchmaster. He instructs Culvestan to walk away, and the situation is diffused. With Culvestan gone from the tent, Rock whispers to Zakid, "If you hadn't done that, I was going to." Kajisi thanks the group for their assistance, but worries that Culvestan will be back. She asks the party to help deal with the Watchmaster, offering the 500 gold pieces Culvestan is demanding to them instead, if they can end the Watchmaster's harassment permanently. She warns that he is not an enemy to be taken lightly. She also implores the group to find evidence of Culvestan's corruption. The 5 adventurers solidified in their resolve to fight this injustice, accept Kajisi's request. Investigating the marketplace for further information, the party meets Yannicka, a druid half-orc leatherworker from the Pearlbow Wilderness. Yannicka sells a whip to Xarxius, but not before Andros displays an expert's skill in handling influence. In Orcish, they have a conversation, in which Yannicka says something Andros does not like. Another moment of tension ensues, and Andros walks away embittered by the encounter. Xarxius meets a bard named Hans the Strummer. Asking to hear an impromptu song about the group, Rock and Xarxius gather Andros, Theron, and Zakid to listen to the performance. Hans makes small observations on each adventurer as he plays his lute, accepts Xarxius' generous tip, then heads off on his next great project, to write a song about Zakid's goddess, the Winged Mother. Further investigation leads the party to Trent, a human blacksmith apprentice, selling overstock at the crossroads. After selling Rock a dagger, Xarxius and Rock ask him about Culvestan. It takes some persuasion, but Trent eventually whispers that Culvestan has been shaking down merchants in the marketplace for some time. He and the others are too afraid of Culbestan's authority as Watchmaster to do anything, but reveals that, as a part-time adventurer himself, he has witnessed Crownsguard coming and going, man and mind to the south. He even attests to seeing Culbestan himself at the location, known as Smuggler's Cavern. He asks for the party's discretion in the matter, and wishes them luck in their quest for justice. As the day wears on, Zakid reads the postings on the job board. Chapter 2. Zakid, checking the Amber Crossroads job board, finds 2 postings. One is from a trader named Bryn of Odessa, offering to pay mercenaries who will escort his trade caravans. The second is an official recruitment notice from the Righteous Brand, the army of the Dwendalian Empire. Andros removes the recruitment posting from the board, folding it and taking it away, to the curiosity of Zakid. Xarxius, meanwhile, keeps his eyes on the merchants of the market. The owner of a certain stall locks eyes with him, and, while no names are exchanged, they share the imperceptible gestures that tell Xarxius he is a fellow thief, willing to purchase stolen items. Theron, noticing Andros' earlier behavior, seeks insight into the half-orc's interest in the Righteous Brand. His questions are evaded, and, despite his elven wisdom, he cannot get a good read. After a short conference, the group decides to pursue the Odeslo job offer before pursuing Culbestan, and head north along the Cloakjaunt path towards their destination. The southernmost tip of the Probo Wilderness offered safe passage, and the group reached camp by night 1 without issue. With Xarxius scouting ahead on day 2 of the journey, however, they encountered their first danger: 2 loitering bandits occupying the middle of the road. An unorthodox sequence ensues. The party is on their guard, slowly approaching the bandits, ready to parley and engage if needed. When within eyeshot, Xarxius offers the signs of Thieves' Camp, attempting to dissuade hostilities, and Andros addresses the men cordially, even the additional bandits hiding nearby, who the bandit leader calls forth. Rock, Mage's Hand cast, stands at the ready. In a moment, Zakid is suddenly skybound, and within his grasp is the party's fully armored paladin. He circles overhead with Theron, putting the bandits holding crossbows on edge, and bringing a wry smile to the leader's face. Stepping forward, the leader reveals that his outfit has been robbing passing caravans on the road. They believe the approaching traders may have valuable items. In exchange for the party's help in attacking these traders, the leader offers a hefty sum of gold. The party is not moved, and the bandits turn hostile. With Featherfall assistance from Zakid, Theron is dropped into the conversation. Swords are unsheathed, spells readied, and the battle begins. It is here, on the Cloakjaunt path, that the party's true strength was revealed. Even as a 5th bandit emerges from a nearby tree, the 5 adventurers control the flow of battle, releasing devastating blows and powerful spells upon the enemy. Andros, too, reveals a new side. Casting aside his cloak and grasping his great axe, the terrifying half-orc enters a barbaric rage. The bandit leader, shock frozen in his eyes, meets a quick and bloody end by his hands. Rock's firebolts and magic missiles hit with pinpoint accuracy, shredding a bandit from a distance. Zakid displays his control of the air, sending thunder waves across the field of battle, and ending another bandit with a choking poison spray. Xarxius engages the Tiefling bandit, enduring taunts in Infernal and landing blows with the rapier. Theron, in the thick of battle, calls on his deity and summons a mighty thunderous smite. Eventually, only the Tiefling bandit remains. Andros, still in a battle frenzy, sends the blade of his great axe across the bandit's neck. The head of his enemy rolls across the snow, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. Andros promptly collects the Tiefling's horns guards as a trophy. In the aftermath of the battle, Theron and Zakid heal the party, and valuables are found on the party's attackers. 2 magic pieces of jewel stand out amongst the coin. Tapping into his deep well of arcane knowledge, Rock identifies them as the Ring of Spell Store and the Necklace of Adaptation, 2 powerful items carried, perhaps unknowingly, by the hapless bandits. The merchant caravan the bandits had sights on eventually comes down the scene of battle. They profusely thank the party for removing a threat to the peace. Carrying onwards, the party moves along the banks of the Erdalok, seeing the small fishing and logging village of Odeslo come into view. As the day draws to a close, they enter the settlement a little stronger and richer than they were that morning. Chapter 3. The party enters Odeslo as night has fallen. They see villagers making offerings and saying prayers along the shoreline, a tradition that seems commonplace amongst the locals. As they enter the town proper, Xerxes listens in on a conversation between 2 other locals. They whisper about the Starosta making unreasonable demands. Zakid takes the opportunity to tell more potential converts about the Winged Mother, augmenting his appearance with light and gust of wind. He seems to find eager ears upon learning converse. As Rock asks for directions to the nearest tavern, Andros tries to convince a guard to let him into the Traders Guild, which is closed for the evening. A potentially tense situation is averted, as Andros is whisked away before losing his temper with the guard denying him access. Entering the Bottomless Lake, the tavern in the center of town, the party warms themselves by the fire and orders drinks. There they meet Bryn, guildmaster of the Odeslo Traders Guild and poster of the caravan escort job flyer, back at the Amber Crossroads. After a brief interview, details of the job are discussed. The party will be paid 10 gold pieces a day to escort a caravan safely to Baitseus Tile, an elvish city to the north. While the journey can take less time, Bryn says he will pay for a fortnight of work, earning each member 140 gold pieces total. Half will be paid up front. After Theron asks about the payload, fish and timber, mostly, using a unique enchanting technique that keeps the fish fresh, the job is accepted. Andros begins drinking heavily, mentioning that he was used to a life of discipline and was enjoying the feeling of letting loose. He downs 3 ales quickly. Bryn, beside him at the bar, is impressed. The dwarf offers to put some money down on a drinking contest. Xerxes' attention, meanwhile, is on a lone man drinking in the corner. The man is shaking, muttering, clearly not of sound mind. He does not respond to Xerxes' attempts at talking, but as the tiefling focuses his listening, he hears the man stammer about 3 sisters and, repeatedly, never look them in the eye. Concerned, Xerxes reports this back to the party. Back at the bar, Andros has chosen to make a statement in the drinking contest. He lifts all 3 mugs of ale into his mouth simultaneously, impresses Bryn, and wins the gold on the table. Feeling the drink, the half-orc begins loudly asking who he can get in a fight with. Brushing away Bryn's attempts at calming him, Andros goes on, yearning for a fight. Answering the call is a large brute of an individual, as drunk or drunker than Andros, who staggers up to the bar. In each other's faces, neither backs down. Rock and Theron's advice for cooler heads goes unheard, and after a particularly stinging insult from Andros towards the 2 additional thugs at the nearby table, the first one takes a swing. Theron tries to restrain the assailant, but the punch connects, and the newly formed party enters their first tavern brawl. At first, the fight is confined to non-lethal blows. Xerxes at one point sends a rushing thug flying into his table, causing a burn from the candle. When the angered thug pulls out his weapon, however, the scuffle takes an entirely different turn. Xarxius is struck with a mace, and the fight is truly on. Each party member, their lives in danger, goes to work doing what they do best. Theron and Andros go toe-to-toe with the thugs, while Zakid and Rock rain down magical attacks. Bryn, popping up from behind the bar with a crossbow, warns the thugs to stop fighting and drop their weapons. They do not heed his warning. Xarxius shows his talent with two-weapon fighting, landing savage blows with his daggers, but is stuck with two thugs on the other side of the bar. The attacks overwhelm him, and after a brutal hit from the mace, he falls unconscious. His injuries are severe, and as the fight wears on, it appears the crafty rogue may be approaching death's door. Rushing to action is Theron. The Pallid Elf puts his healing gifts to use, restoring Xarxius to consciousness, binding some of his wounds, and placing arcane protection upon him. With their compatriot back in the fight, the party begins finishing off the thugs, one by one. Andros, showing skill and savagery with the great axe, splits the head of one thug, and Rock burns another alive. The third thug, weakened by Zakid's devastating witch bolts, faces Xarxius for a final confrontation. The tiefling gets his revenge, ending the fight, poetically, with the final blow. The tavern catches its collective breath as Bryn expresses disgust at the thug's escalation of the fight. He thanks the party for putting them down, even awarding the enhanced crossbow hidden behind the bar. The thugs are looted and were found to have been carrying large sums of gold, curious for seemingly small-town ruffians. Bryn pays for the party's rooms and begins dragging out the bodies, with blood-cleaning help from Rock's mage again, and said he will see the party. Xarxius, interested in the few other patrons of the tavern, begins asking questions, in particular, why they stayed and watched the fight instead of leaving. He gets nervous answers from one and a stone-cold one from another, but neither seem too suspicious. Zakid, however, is fascinated by the mumbling man in the corner, who seems to not even notice a fight occurred. After successfully using a charm spell, the man confides in Zakid, whispering a long hell and terrors. Chapter 4. The party rests that night in the tavern's accommodations, and Theron is given a prophetic dream from his patron god. Downstairs at morning breakfast, he tells the group what he received, a message from Bahamut, the Platinum Dragon, telling him he is on the right path, but to be watchful for a great rising evil. Bryn enters the tavern, ready to discuss the day's business, but before he can, the morning air is pierced by a loud shriek. Heavy footsteps approach, a detail of Crown's Guard, led by the Watchmaster for Odeslo, Line Undga. The dwarven officer pops his head into the tavern, requesting the party's assistance in dealing with a threat by the town's shoreline. Rushing to action, the party and guards encounter a horrible sight on the banks of the Erdloch. Massive, monstrous crabs emerging from the waves, attacking the townsfolk in droves. Crown's Guard work to battle them off, but one by one, they are shredded by the beast's massive claws and mandibles. Readying their weapons, the 5 adventurers attack. Xarxius climbs a tree for position and begins raining down crossbow bolts from Bryn's new weapon. Magic and steel meet hardened shells, and the battle rages on. As quickly as the crabs are dispatched, more join the fray from the lake. The battle quickly turns chaotic as the Crown's Guard, their Watchmaster, and the 5 party members jostle for space between the alleys leading to the docks. Zakid, Andros, Theron, Rock, and Xarxius deal plenty of damage, but the Crown's Guard does take losses. A fearsome claw pins Theron to the wall, but the fat paladin fights his way in. The waves of the lake part again, but this time it is a giant crayfish, twice the size of the crabs, claws snapping as it scuttles forward. The party, however, is undeterred. They dispatch of the beast before any more destruction can be wrought on the desolate. In the aftermath, as the Watchmaster counts his dead and laments the increasing occurrence of such giant crab attacks, Zakid offers what he had been told by Mad Ginny the night before, that nearby lived 3 hags who are the source of the town's woes. Watchmaster Undgaf dismisses Ginny's old tales as rumors, but, as he is desperate, informs the party that if such rumors were investigated and found to be the cause, he would happily pay to have the source of the attacks ended once and for all. With that, the party was directed to Neville Rudder, who happily rented the 5 a pair of rowboats to explore the area of the Erdelag the hag's lair was reputed to be. As the party pushed into the waters, they kept close watch of what lurked beneath the waves, seeing several dark shapes swim by as they did. Chapter 5. The party of Zakid the Sorcerer, Rock the Wizard, Thirin the Paladin, Xarxius the Rogue, and Andros the Barbarian continued their crossing of the Erdelag, the mighty lake west of Odesla, in search of the rumored hag's lair. Reaching an area befouled with corruption, the group encountered what looked like the cave entrance, but also 2 full-sized Marrow warriors. No peace was possible following Zakid's magical thunderclap across the water, and the battle was on. Andros and Thirin commandeered one boat, Xarxius and Rock the other. Zakid flew overhead, concentrating his magic on one Marrow, while the other closed in on the marshal's boat. Axe, sword, bolt, and fire rained down on the aquatic monsters, while the Marrow by the boats responded with savage bites and claws, most landing upon Andros, who raged and responded in kind. Zakid, engaged with the other Marrow, was caught by a harpoon, but was never able to be pulled into the water. Struggling and healing himself midair, the avian mage proved a difficult meal, and the Marrow eventually succumbed to repeated ranged attacks from the boats. The Marrow by the boats had Andros badly injured, but with the divine magic of Thirin nearby, the worst of his wounds were patched. The monster endured many blows from the party, and had its fate sealed when Xarxius' enchantment sent it fast asleep upon the water, allowing more easy attacks. With one last-ditch effort to flee the battle, the Marrow attempted to dive, but was caught by a killing blow from Thirin's bare fist. The battle at end, the party turned their direction forward to the entrance of the festering cavern. Inside the cavern was unpleasant, wet and dank, thick with fog, lacking any light. Xarxius snuck ahead, finding the passages opening to an opening with 4 crabs and a bubbling green pool of water. The crustaceans did not notice the cave's visitors, focused on a meal below them. Rock joined the stealth, taking an advantageous position, with Xarxius behind the monsters. Zakid, meanwhile, his magic illuminating the area around him, crept forward with the party marshals. He stayed just out of the crab's view. Then, Thirin's heavy boots kicked an errant pebble, alerting the crabs to the party's presence. The party, however, was ready. A flurry of steel and magic quickly and decisively dispatched the giant crabs. Revealed was what the crabs had been eating, the chewed corpse of an adventurer. Turning to the bubbling green pool, Xarxius reported seeing something of interest at the bottom. Rock's mage hand tested Zakid's rope in the pool. The rope was promptly corroded away by the caustic, toxic water. The mage hand dragged out a skeleton, and Xarxius drew from it a strange flask of green liquid. Zakid, meanwhile, drew a flask of the water itself, and the party took a short rest, the cave's darkened depths looming ahead. Chapter 6. The party continued forward in the festering cave. Around them, the ominous toxic mist grew thicker, and the 5 adventurers remained on their guard. Xarxius, scouting ahead, spotted the legs of another giant monstrosity. The party planned their attacks, hoping to catch the giant crayfish by surprise. But unfortunately, Xerxes' initial crossbow bolt missed its target. With the area newly illuminated by flame and torch, the party had full view of the monster, now awake, charging towards them. While Andros had a close call in the ensuing combat, his relentless orcish endurance kept him from unconsciousness. The rest of the party carved up the crustacean with their offense, and Xerxes landed the killing blow. Discovering the half-eaten body of a dead adventurer, the party found an accompanying sword and note. The note, written by one Galland of Eurosa, said he had killed one hag, but had then been scared witless by the remaining two. He then revealed the sword he had paid a portion for was cursed. Rock and Xerxes both drew from their deep wells of knowledge and identified the sword as the long sword of vengeance. The party wanted nothing to do with such a cursed item, and Zakid carefully cast it into the nearest festering pool of toxic water. Making their way into the final chamber of the festering cave, the party met their quarry, Brinetooth and Sludgeheart, the two remaining sea hags, backs turned, and engaged in a ritual. The wicked sisters called forth another giant crab from the depths of the toxic pool nearby. They then asked for a pardon, offering to make the party a deal. Rock and Theron approached, with Rock offering to politely listen. Before the terms of the exchange could be revealed, however, Andros asked his fellow party members if they trusted the hags. When they responded in the negative, he hurled a javelin at Brinetooth's back. With a chilling scream, the hags vowed to kill the adventurers. The battle was on. Summoning a toxic marrow to assist in the melee, the hags attempted to frighten the party with their horrific appearance, while their aquatic ally reeled Theron in with his poison harpoon. The paladin took severe damage but fought bravely, never brought down despite relentless attacks. Andros, his rage spent, fought alongside the paladin, while Zakid, Rock, and Xerxes attacked the hags from afar. The battle was evenly matched, but our brave adventurers gained the upper hand as they resisted each of the hags' attempts to scare them. As Brinetooth, the toxic marrow, and eventually Sludgeheart fell, the great evil plaguing the northern Erdlock and the town of Odessa was at last destroyed. The party found several valuable items that hags had been hoarding. Rock prepared to identify them, and the group made plans to return to Odessa and deliver the good news. Chapter 7. The party returned to town under rainy skies, the long boat ride behind them. Turning their rented vessels in, they discussed their successes with Neville, who directed Zakid towards a figure standing on the docks. Facing the lake, rain pelting him, Mad Ginny seemed to be at peace at last when Zakid arrived. He said the lake, too, had at last found peace, and as thanks, slipped an item into Zakid's winged hands, a tiny pearl. He whispered a final word and left. The party, meanwhile, was already being hailed as heroes. Showing off the head of one of the slain hags, the Watchmaster was amazed and thanked the party profusely. He hoped that, at last, his town could find some peace. As payment for the 5 arrived, Bryn also joined the congratulations. The party decided they would still take the offer of employment. Bryn, impressed at the group's heroics, said he had already made contingencies, 2 orcs as backup, but would honor the group with the work instead. He let them prepare for their journey and said he would see them off in the morning. After a night's rest, the party did some shopping, with Xerxes unable to help himself from lifting some merchandise off a vendor's stall. Meeting Bryn on the outskirts of town, they saw the caravan prepared with 3 carts, each with a driver, laden with lumber and barrels of fish. As final agreements were made, and Bryn paid the party their first half of the gold in advance, he warned the group not to cross him. Besides that, he said he would be waiting for word from his contact in Bisaeus Tile, and wished the group all the best on the long journey northward. Chapter 8. The party set off from the town of Odessa, undertaking the caravan escort mission assigned by Bryn. With 3 carts laden with goods under their protection, they crossed the long wooden bridge spanning the Erdeloch and began the long journey north to Bisaeus Tile. Entering the Pearlbow wilderness proper and leaving civilization behind, the party encountered an elderly gnome traveling alone with a large sack. The man introduced himself as Cornelius Biblos, purveyor of rare books, scholar of the arcane. Happy to see potential customers, he encouraged the group to look upon his wares. The sight of an old lone gnome traveling alone struck Andros as suspicious, and the distrustful half-orc warned the group against looking at the books. Attempting to glean insight, Zaki noticed Cornelius muttering slightly to himself, but despite the strangeness of the man, remained cordial, and took the opportunity to speak of the winged mother. Theron, meanwhile, had his interest piqued by Cornelius' tales of having just come from Bisaeus Tile, and the large library the elves there keep. He sold the paladin a book on Molesmere, a city now in ruins, but once the seat of a great elvish kingdom. Cornelius then bid the party adieu, saying he was headed to Rexford. An uneventful day of travel and night by the campfire followed. The next morning, Xerxes set out ahead of the group to scout, and warned of something waiting for the caravan in the trees lining the road. Zakid used his thunderclap spell to flush out the would-be ambushers, revealing Grolock and Shmoo, 2 heavily armed, battle-scarred wolves. Grolock explained that he was chief of the once great Grey Tusk clan, which had all been wiped out. In his bid to return to prominence, he and his brother had been forced to take up mercenary work, and in that time, they learned Bryn was involved in criminal activity. To prove it, he told the party to check the merchandise within the carts. Rock investigated the middle cart and, true to Grolock's word, found a hidden compartment containing 4 cases, 24 bottles in each, of a purple liquid. The party recognized the substance as zeal, a powerful and quite illegal stimulant potion. Grolock suggested, quite forcefully, the party divide the spoils with him and his brother to avoid bloodshed. As the group pondered the ethical quandary they found themselves in, Andros picked up a case of the zeal and brought it over to the 2 orcs. He then hurled the case in the air, over Grolock's head, directly onto Shmoo. 24 vials of glass shattered on Shmoo's head, and between the vicious lacerations and the subsequent amount of zeal entering his system, the orc veteran dropped dead in rather horrific fashion. As Grolock screamed in rage, the battle was on. It took all 5 party members' combined magic and might to take down the powerful orc war chief, with Andros and Theron suffering heavy damage. In the end, however, Theron's sword and Andros' axe ended Grolock's reign over the Pearlbow wilderness. Andros, overcome with grief at having to kill a fellow orc, ran off into the thick of the woods, the concerned Xerxes following behind. The rest of the party, meanwhile, surveyed the aftermath of the battle and considered their next steps now that their caravan escort mission had been turned sideways. Chapter 9. The party split following the battle with Grolock and Shmoo. Andros, overcome with emotion from being forced to kill his own kin, had run into the woods, with the concerned Xerxes on his tail. Theron, Rock, and Zakid, meanwhile, surveyed the aftermath of the encounter. They decided to release the cart driver who had been manacled to a tree and began questioning him. The cart driver, even after intimidation tactics, swore he did not have direct knowledge of Bryn's criminal operations. Satisfied he was being truthful, the party allowed him and the remaining cart driver to provide their dead compatriot a proper burial. Andros, meanwhile, found himself in a deeper portion of the woods, wrought with sadness. Xerxes, watching his good friend from afar, hunkered down by a tree. Tiny, fey creatures, pixies, began buzzing around Andros, seemingly friendly and benign, though speaking an unintelligible language. The rest of the party caught up to Andros and Xerxes, and soon saw the same pixies, who bid the group to follow. A dryad then appeared from a tree, and, speaking in a language all could finally understand, said she was pleased with the party's actions. This was echoed by 3 members of Clan Ulari, a nomadic band of elves calling the Pearlbow Wilderness home, who approached the party. Their leader wished to speak with the group, and after sending 2 scouts to watch over the caravan, the elven warrior led the adventurers to the clan's nearby camp. It was here that the group met Dethandra, leader of Clan Ulari, who expressed gratitude at ridding their home of old enemies of the clan, and, by extension, the Pearlbow Wilderness itself. Brethel Pegn Tal in Elvish. Dethandra spoke of the history of the woods, his clan's connection to the city of Bysaeus Tile, and the difference between his nomadic elves and the settled ones to the north. The party revealed their predicament in being unwitting zeal smugglers, and sought Dethandra's counsel. While the keeper was not particularly keen of the substance being used by his people, he reasoned it may be part of a larger plan by Bysaeus Tile's leadership. The Ring of 3, consisting of Alucis Dawin, Gwei Yethneros, and Amra Valier, to try and subvert imperial rule. Amra, in particular, was known to be involved in trade with other cities in the empire, and operated through her consort and assistant, Parsis Boreas. Dethandra gave the impression that his clan preferred non-interventionist measures, and allowed the group to make their own decisions on how to proceed with the caravan. Offering Theron a token of his people, Dethandra told the party to show the symbol to Parsis when and if they reached Bysaeus Tile, as it may buy a bit of goodwill. The party rested and recharged in camp, Zaki learning some new recipes, Xerxes flirting with the lovely but severe archer Liliana, Andros stewing bitterly, before heading back to the caravans. Zaki nearly persuaded a pixie to join the group as a companion, but was ultimately informed by the dryad that the tiny creature's place was within the forest. Respecting this, the Aarakocra was sure to leave tribute to the winged mother before he left. The group traveled the rest of the day without incident. However, tension was brewing. Andros made it very clear he was unhappy with playing the part of smuggler, and not even Rock, who had kept a single bottle of zeal just in case, could convince him otherwise. As the sun set and the party made camp, Xerxes offered to take first watch. It was then that the teeth of the plan sprung into action. As Rock, Zakid, and Andros slept, and Theron rested in deep meditation, Xerxes slid over to Andros and quietly woke him. He told the half-orc his plan. He wanted to destroy the remaining cases of zeal once and for all, perhaps turning over a new leaf from his roguish lifestyle. Andros was happy to be part of the plan, and the two stealthily made their way to the carts, undetected by the rest of the party. Seawald and Delandra, the two surviving cart drivers, slept nearby, with Seawald on his cart and Delandra in a tent adjacent. With Andros taking care of the drivers, Xerxes cast firebolt on the cases of zeal. The second bolt hit, and soon the contraband had erupted in flames, bottles shattering with heat and pressure. Seawald awoke, crying out that there was a fire, and the horse hitched to the contraband cart bolted as soon as Xerxes cut its reins. Andros quickly moved to silence the cart driver, but his cries had been heard, Theron bolted out of his trance. The paladin was shocked by what he saw. "Betrayers!" he cried, drawing his sword. Rock and Zakid, also now awake, turned to see the commotion. Andros, seeing Theron unsheath his sword, produced his own weapon and moved in. Zakid decried Xerxes' and Andros' actions, saying they could not be trusted. Andros, nearly raging, repeated his extreme displeasure with the direction the party was moving. While the cart drivers worked to extinguish the flames on the cart, the fire inside the 4 party members grew, and it seemed the newly formed band of adventurers was ready to tear each other apart. Insults were traded, accusations made. Zakid cast Blade Ward, and it seemed the argument was about to turn bloody. Just before the situation came to blows, Rock stepped in, mediating an uneasy peace with his reassuring words. While open conflict was avoided, the group stated that trust between the members had been lost. While sleep did at last come for the members of the adventuring party, dubbed, perhaps appropriately, Rock's bitches by Xerxes, it was not without untrusting glances and deep hurt emotions. As the sun rose, the party faced a new day, and what was perhaps their greatest challenge yet, each other.